Professor Rick Horrow, inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. We're on the record, and it is a maelstrom called college athletics these days. It is a combination of a whole bunch of stuff. It's no longer where you can be a successful head coach and ease into a position as athletic director. It hadn't been that way for a few years. We've got somebody who has a double title, vice president and athletic director at Florida State University. Michael Alford, thank you. It is an honor to have you.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure. It's always great to see you and enjoy everything you do for us.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So it's 1969. Are you old enough to consider a career in sports? No, you're not even one yet. But did you have, from an early stage, when you were old enough to think about this, did you have any idea that you'd be where not only you were the last few years, but where you are today?
Well, it's a very interesting question. Grew up the son of a high school football coach, became college football coach, then became college administrator. So it's kind of born and raised in the business and being around it. Then being a Division I athlete myself and going on and getting a master's in athletic administration. It was just something that I wanted to do to stay involved in sports. Something that always drove me. I learned so much of it. It paid for me to go to college, and I was able to take that and turn it into a career. So I really enjoy it, but more enjoyable being around the student athletes on a daily basis.
Of course you do. Yeah.
We're in the education business, and just having an impact on them is what's so important.
So a little bit of reverse engineering / advice. UAB Communications, the Masters in Athletic Administration at Arkansas. Is that the combination that you would recommend now for a well-rounded athletic director in this turbulent times of college athletics?
Yes, sir. You definitely, if you're going to work in the collegiate field, you definitely need a master's because we are about education. Some even go on and get their doctorate. I'm kind of a chameleon because I've got many years too in professional sports, and I did that because I'm a lifelong learner, and I want to separate myself from others in learning the pro side model and being able to incorporate that and like I do to my daily life here on a college campus. And that's something that I really value of going out and getting that experience and always taking positions to gain experience of what can I learn and who can I surround myself with or work for that's going to make a difference in my life. And that's something that I've really cherished.
Man, and you cherish your way because before your first AD job, we'll get into that. You're at Alabama, you're at the Cowboys, with Castiglione in Oklahoma, you're at USC, you're at a TV, a media network, the Bengals. If jobs are like lifelong learning, man, you've learned a lot. The diversity obviously has helped you. What is most beneficial about all of these positions as it relates to your personal experience?
Well, being able to work under and learn from people. Working for Joe Castiglione, you mentioned that, and the life lessons and just how he goes about his decision-making process and being a sponge on that wall and being able to be a part of that process and learning from there, working with Alabama with Mal Moore, who has since passed, but the athletic director there, and going through Coach Saban's hire and everything that goes along with that, negotiating those contracts. Being at SC when we hired Coach Carroll and made that change. And working with Mike Garrett out at SC and just learning from him and all different. And then, of course, the Cowboys and being a part of Mr. Jones' executive staff and learning from the family, Jerry Jr., Steven, Charlotte, Jerry, and just being a sponge. And, of course, you're going to have your own ideas, your own philosophies, but being molded by those people around you and given the gift and opportunity to sit at the table and learn on major decisions. And that's something that really molded to where I am and prepared me for this today.
Diverse, tempestuous, interesting, no wallflower personalities there. Right?
No, zero. All very different, but able to take something from every single one of them and mold it to your own philosophy.
Yeah, and also the substance that you were able to work on before your first AD hire in Dallas, 400 million of contractual revenue, and the stadium programming from 2008 2012. That is a monumental job.
Yeah, being a part of that and being familiar with the Jones family from the time I worked at the Bengals, and having that opportunity to then go work and be really over all their corporate revenue and designing going into AT&T Stadium and being a part of that process of the stadium build, the stadium design, but then also the revenue components of it.
Yeah,
And that's something I just learned more than you can go to any class for.
well, and frankly, I'm going to digress for a minute, but being around stadium stuff for me in the NFL, isn't the NFL a beautiful thing where you can take the Bengals who are at the bottom of almost everything? I don't mean because they're not doing it right, but their terms of revenue sharing ability just above Green Bay, and then you go to Dallas where they're printing money, and the NFL harmoniously says all for one for all with some asterisks, but effectively a unified kind of socialist structure. Amazing.
It is an amazing structure. The owners of the NFL, those 32 guys, have it figured out. And it's an amazing organization to work for. And I could learn so much from my time in the NFL. Everything from players' contracts to dealing with the NFLPA to dealing with marketing agreements outside the NFL. It really just helped shape and learn something different every day. I learned something different as we moved along.
All right, so Joe Castiglione thinks that he needs a real good fundraiser, and he hires you in '98 as the associate AD for development and administration, and you raise 160 million for Gaylord Family Stadium. Was that easy to do in Oklahoma City, or was it as difficult as anybody can imagine?
That's one of the most something I'm very proud of, because it was in the worst economic time in the state's history. And people doubted that we would be able to go out and raise this money. And we accomplished it because we went out and shared a vision of what it's going to be in the future, how it's going to position the University of Oklahoma for opportunities in the future, and able to go out and get buy-in from the community to go out and fund that stadium project, which is one of the finest stadiums in the country.
Yeah, and as an aside, after working on maps and bringing the Thunder in and kind of helping on all that, Oklahomans are special people, right?
Yes, they are. They love their Sooners, but they're diehard Oklahomans, and they want the very best for that state and everything involved in that state. And they're willing to roll up their sleeves and get to work. And really, if you share a vision and have a committed vision, they're going to partner with you in that process.
All right. So now you're number two at a whole bunch of different places, and you're learning like a sponge, as you said. But in 2017, you enter the big time in the MAC, and you're the AD at Central Michigan for 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. 600% increase in revenue. How hard was it in the MAC, and how'd you do it?
Yeah, it was getting out once again. The model didn't change. May change different levels, but it is making sure that you put a good plan together. If you know anything about me, I'm very analytical. I'm gonna have analytics, and I'm gonna see what they are. And it's at the end of the day, you're gonna make a decision with your gut, but you're gonna study everything. But it's getting out and sharing your vision of building a new football complex, doing a new Adidas deal, renegotiating all your revenue levers of saying, how do we move the organization forward? And that was something we were able to do there on a smaller scale, but really able to make a difference at Central Michigan, which is a fine university in Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
And the MAC, of course it is. And one of the things about the MAC is it is as kind of socialistic in a positive way, almost as the NFL is. You got 12 teams, and they're all kind of in the same economic situation. Same boat, same Midwest, budgets, same deals. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's how do we make a difference? How do we differentiate ourselves? Because you're all sitting there about the same budget, $1 million or $2 million off each other. But if you can grow your revenues, it should set you up to be able to do some things different. We were able to accomplish that.
All right. So it's late 21, and it's an interesting late 2020. And it's an interesting perspective because you go from that to the Seminoles Booster CEO. Tell us about that transition.
Yeah, the Seminole Boosters is a great organization. Sits outside the athletic department. but is 400 million annually. Owns properties across the
Yeah.
country, own apartments. We own bars. We own restaurants. They lease to us. So it's a very diverse organization that also supports the athletic department. So being able to go there for a year, learn the in and outs of the organization, getting more experience once again that I hadn't had on managing land acquisitions and also managing leases, along with raising money and growing the annual fund and tickets and everything that comes along with the annual revenue, and really just learn something different. But it allowed me to come in and understand the organization before moving into the athletic director's chair.
Well, and the other thing about that too is I was studying whether what you did with the Sooner Club under Joe
Mhm.
was identical, and then I realized you were a real estate guy when you were basically running the Seminole Booster Club, right?
Yes, you would. It owns a piece of property here called College Town.
Yeah.
Many restaurants. They built it, designed it. It's got like 1,000 beds, rental space. It was truly, not to mention other real estate holdings, but that's the main one that the Boosters own, operate, and has diverse income to offset athletics.
Okay, so here we are, and it's Michael Alford, who is the most fully prepared, educated human on earth, and it's December 9, 2021. Do you realize what you're getting into?
I did. I was very excited about it because I was here a year. It gave me that advantage to understand what adjustments were needed to be made within the athletic department. So we were able to come in, get the booster organization up and running, change some processes there, get it producing at a very high elite level, and then moving over to the athletic department and being around the student athletes and the coaches, and really back to my roots of understanding what needs to happen within the department. So I was really excited about it because it did give me the opportunity to kind of learn it on the ground floor of what was going on, which made me able to make easier, faster adjustments after moving into the athletic director's chair.
And you moved in pretty quick, and now looking back, you got a whole lot of stuff that you've done and will do. So let's take some pieces of today's challenges. First of all, facilities, $265 million Doak Campbell renovation, under 70,000 seats. But I notice all the tricks of public-private partnership, the new facility available for concerts, even through bull riding in the press release. Good for
Yeah, we
you.
got that. We got the
Yeah.
bananas coming in. We got all kinds of activities.
Yeah.
We got the
So,
motocross booked. We're going to be using Doak, and
yeah.
because we represent $100 million impact to the city of Tallahassee and Leon County. So we have to continue to use this stadium to have that economic impact in this community and do our part.
Yeah, and frankly, knowing how public-private partnerships are done on the pro level, a lot of people say college is different. Yours is not. The real estate piece, the public-private, the extra events, the economic impact, study first, and then
Mm-hmm.
figuring what the renovation looks like. It's similar to a lot of successful projects all over the country, right?
It's very similar to running. We mentioned my NFL experience
Yeah.
before. It is very similar to looking at the holistic model of what revenue levers you can pull and putting those together to make sure that you're really capitalizing on everything that's available to you, and putting an organization together that's kind of in sync of tying those together.
And you can't forget, even though that's 265 million, it's big,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the bull riders who needed a home.
Yes.
But you got $500 million of projects and fields, beach softball, soccer, softball complexes. I assume you're
Mm-hmm.
proud. You're proud of all that.
Yes, just opened up a new $150 million football only facility. There's 149. I round up to 150,
Yeah.
but $150 million football only facility for our football program. And we've been able to touch pretty much all of our sports in some project or another to enhance the student athlete experience. And that's something that, having been a Division I athlete, my wife was, I got three daughters that were, that's what matters.
Uh,
Providing back to them the resources to be successful in their sport and academically.
yeah, and clearly you do it right. So let's talk about a little bit of law in politics for a second, conference alignment broadly defined.
Mhm.
Uh, was it harder to pull the trigger internally regarding the ACC lawsuit, or was it necessary for self-preservation early on when you filed?
Well, you look at the economics of it. When you study the media contract and you study who's driving the media value within that contract, and then you look at who you're competing against out in the world and who your peers are and what contract are they under. So it's really asking the question of if you're driving the media contract, the media value of this contract, you should get a bigger share, which would allow us to compete amongst our peers who are in other conferences. And that was really the driver of it. It was asking the question of we need to do something different. You mentioned the NFL model, everybody shares. Well, it's the same model, but if you're driving the media value at the time with competition out there that's getting more from their media contract than you are, you need to look internally at doing something different. And that was the question that we asked.
Yeah, and frankly, at the end, interpreting the settlement as a weekend lawyer who teaches, but not in the middle of the litigation, it looks like best of both worlds because it gives you a share, but it also gives you an internal incentive to do a little bit more on your own that otherwise you might not be able to have.
And that was so important going through it. It wasn't paying Florida State. It wasn't paying. We have to
Yeah.
go earn it. It was setting up a model where if you're drawing the TV eyeballs, you're going to get paid a little differently. Also setting up a model of success. If you're going to the CFP, going to the bowl games,
Yeah.
driving that, going to basketball tournaments, you're going to get paid a little differently. So there's two models of the media value and the success initiatives that we carved out that allows teams to do things differently. And it's really challenging everyone. Go schedule those games. We played LSU, Alabama. We got games coming up. We're scheduling outside our conference very competitive games that I think grows the brand of the conference.
Yeah.
And that was something that I talked about a lot was we need as a conference, as a group, to challenge ourselves so we can grow. And to do that, you can earn more money. So let's set up this model where if you're growing and challenging yourself and getting eyeballs and driving the media value, you get a chance to earn more.
Yeah, probably shouldn't bring up Stanford, but I was at the Miami game, and the one thing that's back
Yeah.
to back and probably unheard of is have two teams who've never met before and followed the next week by two teams who also had never met before, which is kind of interesting when you think about what Stanford does and what the ACC does, and obviously
Right.
that leads to higher values, higher media, higher relevance too. Let's shift gears for a minute and go back to NIL. I know a lot of athletic directors personally who have less hair than they had going in because they're pulling their hair out and they don't know what to do. But your experience as the CEO of the Booster organization, where you brought in 2,000 new members and you raised 15 million new for the football complex, did that help gain a knowledge of what NIL was going to be from the inside out?
What helped me was my NFL experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Negotiating Tony Romo's starter, Jason Witten's Albertsons, and just being involved in that. And I don't know if you know this, but in 2019, I kind of represented all the athletic directors in the country and going in front of the NCAA and giving a model to basically what we're doing now, a third party administrator. Now we have Deloitte that
Yeah.
monitors and evaluates our agreements and having guardrails set aside.
Are you happy with that, by the way?
I'm very happy. I think
Good.
Deloitte's doing an excellent job. I think the model works. Their algorithm works. I'm a fan of it. Used it in the NFL. It comes down to enforcement, and that's now that we got the College Sports Commission, and
Yeah.
I challenge them that all of this is great, and this algorithm works. Deloitte works. If you put your agreements through it, it's what NIL is designed to do, not pay for play. You have to go earn it and have a legitimate deal and grow your brand, but it all comes down to enforcement. And that's
Yeah.
something that I'm still waiting to see how that's going to shake out. I believe in how they're structuring it, but I want to see it in action.
Well, I'm still waiting for the memo from President Emmert when he said college athletes should be paid. I'll get back to you in a couple of years and tell you how.
Yeah.
But you don't have to comment on that. That's okay. That's just a personal parenthetical opinion. You can just, you're in the business, so I'm just going to lay it out there. Let's shift gears to team performance. You're proud that 18 of your 20 teams have advanced to the postseason the last couple of years. How hard is it to keep that consistently?
It is very hard. You got to keep funding. It's something that we take a lot of pride in, that we compete for national championships across the board. We have a holistic view of the department, whether it's beach volleyball competing for a national championship, soccer winning one a couple of years ago, our softball programs winning one, baseball is just in Omaha. We're very proud of that. But to have all those teams competitive, we need to keep funding it. And that's something that we're constantly working on. We're a self-sustaining athletic department. So we have to go out and raise the funds. We have a $220 million budget right now. And so we have to keep funding those programs to compete on elite level. A lot of universities pick and choose five and don't fund the others. We're funding all to compete at a very high level, and that's something we're very proud of.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, here's a guy. They're 12th 2 years ago in the Learfield Cup. Will be in the top 10. Will be up there all the time. And they said, "All right, we're bored. We need more of a challenge. Let's bring in women's lacrosse. So let's have a 24th first team, which means facilities, which means franchise. So you don't stop, do you?"
No, sir. We're just building a brand new $20 million lacrosse facility. They start play this February 7th. I can't wait. Went and hired a great coach, Sarah Tisdale, who has already built two programs. And then jumping into the ACC. Yeah, I mean, it's like the premier league for women's lacrosse. And going in and competing amongst the very best, win national championships in our conference in women's lacrosse. So funding them to compete instantly. I was like, we're not going to build here. We're going to go and compete right off the bat. And that's something, the new facility is going to be marvelous.
Jump right in. I've got Duke and UNC daughters in my family, and they don't want to talk about basketball. They want to talk about lacrosse. So
it's lacrosse and women's soccer too.
Yeah,
and the
demographics attached to both, which is a win-win-win for you. So obviously, football is the elephant in the room. No matter how successful you are and how many wins you have, last year was not good for you guys, and you started well, and then everybody all of a sudden talks about the death and the buyouts and all of that. We're not going to talk about your current coach, and that's not even relevant to this. But I would ask you, the Signetti extension and the Napier and the Kelly buyouts, does it change the leverage relative to guaranteed years versus amount of buyout as you negotiate coaches' contracts?
And it's interesting coming out of the House settlement. That's something that you're going to look. Does the market change? Does it get to more of an NFL model contract with a head coach? I think it is going to change a little bit. I don't know if it'll ever change down that much, down to a 4-year deal and no buyout. NFL contracts are different with coaches, but I think the model is going to be changing. We're looking at it right now collectively. Talk to ADs across the country. What are they doing in their new coaches' contracts? Just looking for every little piece of advice as you move forward to renegotiate any coach, from a volleyball coach to a head football coach.
Yeah.
I think the model is going to change moving forward because we are now rev sharing with our student athletes of about $22 million a year going up. So we want to make sure that is a new expense. That is. And so we need to look at how we model our coaches' contracts to set along with that.
Clearly, and it will evolve. Here's a question that was obvious a few years ago, maybe not so obvious now. This spring, every team of yours except one had a GPA of over 3. Your 3.338 cum GPA is very high. Does the transfer portal and the priority placed on NAL, does that make it harder to sustain that GPA?
Has not for us, because our coaches understand that we're here to represent the educational mission of the university and have an impact and do our part. And we have coaches who understand that. I'm very proud of our academic record. And when I'm in the recruiting process, I tell our student athletes that are visiting, I go, there's not many places that you can, in your left hand, have a degree from a top 25 public institution in America and then have the resources to compete for national championships. And that's something we're really proud of. So we recruit a holistic student, someone who's going to come here, compete at an elite level athletically, but also compete at elite level academically. And that's something we pride ourselves on.
And Leonard Hamilton and Mike Norvell and all the rest of your coaches, obviously lockstep in that mantra.
Lockstep. It's an amazing culture. They understand the priorities. They understand that we want to win, but we want to win across the board. Very holistic view.
Got it. So, are the qualifications for the new world-class Michael Alford AD different than the old Tom Osborne? Not denigrating him, but the former football coach AD, and if so, how?
I think you have to have an understanding of a lot of different assets coming from a business world and doing that, but also growing up and playing. I understand the locker room. I understand what a student athlete goes through because I was one. I understand the relationship with a coach because one, I'm the son of one, and I married a head volleyball coach in the district. So I understand it from different points of view and understand what, as a dad, having three daughters be Division I athletes, I understand that aspect of it. So I think it's having that well-rounded, holistic viewpoints of what it takes to run this enterprise now, because it is so different than what it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It is running a major organization, a corporation, you want to call it. I got 200 employees, 500 student athletes, and a $220 million budget. So it is having that viewpoint and being able to connect with all those different fractions.
Yeah. So, Michael, I've been looking at some of the weekly stuff about how good you are, and after losses, what they need to do with you. And I will tell you that what is consistent in your world is your wife gets 100% positive pub. You're all over the map. So I'm giving you advice. Just hang on, man. That's you got to wrap to what you've got. Couple more. What is the most important trait you think you bring to the table? Finance, business, law, marketing, administration, politics, consensus building, maybe psychiatry, or all of that?
All of it. I think the most important trait is being authentic. Having the experience, trusting your process, trusting that you've been through the different experiences to get you to this point, and using those different experiences and using the wisdom of the people that you've been able to work for and learn from and see how they made decisions and utilize that and trusting your process. And you're going to always get outside noise. Part of this job is being a politician to some degree, and you're going to have outside noise of people who just don't have all the information you have, and that's okay. And you just have to understand that and trust your process and your experience and the various successes you've had in the past, that you're on the right path.
This industry is taking a toll, and I wouldn't say it's absolutely the reason why Nick Saban stepped away, or Joe is leaving,
Gene
or
Smith,
Jay Wright. I mean, there are a lot of guys on either side of the table in all sports. So how do you personally, and maybe this is a mental health question, how do you guard against that?
You got to stay grounded. I'll sit here and go through a tough situation. You know what I do? I go to a practice and I talk to the student athletes. And it reminds me of why I'm doing this, is to provide opportunities for them, resources, academics, surround them. And people ask me what your most important job is as an athletic director. I say that's an easy one. My most important job is to surround these student athletes with the utmost high character people I can find, whether that's an academic advisor, a trainer in the training room, a strength coach. We have to make sure that we have high standards with our employees, that because these student athletes touch these people every day. And this is the most impressionable time of their lives, in my opinion, 18 to 22, when they kind of go off in the world and form their opinions. So I got to make sure we are doing right by them and right by what we promised them when they came here, to surround them with the utmost high character people.
All right, well grounded Michael Alford. Where is Michael Alford in 10 years?
Hopefully still here at Florida State. We've won a couple of national championships. We've graduated and grown our graduation rate. and really just living here in Tallahassee because it's a beautiful community.
Note to the trustees, note to the president, hang on to this guy. Man, hang on to this guy. Sports Fest and Rick Horrow, speak with you soon.